Charles Darwin was an English naturalist who came up with the idea of evolution. The theory of evolution is based on two main ideas. The first is that evolution occurs, which means living organisms change over time. The second idea is that evolution occurs because of natural selection. This is the process where organisms that adapt better to their environment tend to survive and reproduce more offsprings.
On December 1831, Charles Darwin set sail to observe organisms around the world. He sailed on his ship, the HMS Beagle, for 5 years. During this period, Darwin studied many plants and animals. His findings led him to develop the theory of evolution by natural selection.
Survival of the fittest! I don't think so. Yeah.
Darwin stopped at the Galapagos Island. While there, he observed many organisms, trying to find relationships between them. These observations include the diversity of organisms, the remains of ancient organisms, and the traits of organisms. Scientists today have found 1.7 million species of organisms. Species is a group of similar organisms that can reproduce with each other.
Fossils is the preserved remains or traces of an organism that lived in the past. Darwin studied the fossils of past plants and animals. Darwin had found fossils that resembled the animals of his time, which led him to question what had happened to them.
Charles Darwin realized that species found on the island were similar but slightly different from the ones on the mainland. The plants and animals became slightly modified to their environment. Their new characteristics could help them to survive in difficult environments or to avoid from being extinct.
Species better adapt to their environment through natural selection. Darwin identified 3 factors that help organisms survive and reproduce better than others. These factors are overproduction, variation, and competition. Overproduction can harm a species if there isn't enough food and resources to maintain their existence. Variation can affect a species by giving advantages to certain species that may have become slightly genetically modified. Lastly, competition affects the survival of a species by competing for limited resources.
Hello.
There is a lot of evidence that support the theory of evolution. Similar body structures, patterns of early development, molecular structure, and fossils all show evidence that organisms have changed over time.
Similar development of a species prior to birth can show connections between species as well. Similarities in DNA between different species can show that they are probably evolved from the same ancestors.
Lastly, fossils can preserve the remains of a species, which can help us identify the connection between other organisms.
There are several different types of fossils. Molds and casts are both a copy of an organism. Petrified fossils are when minerals replace all or part of an organism. Trace fossils are evidence of an organism, like a fossilized footprint.
Preserved remains are when an organism remains completely intact. Some organisms remain if they are trapped in tar. Fossils can help determine the rate of evolution. Gradualism is the theory that evolution occurs slow and steady. Punctuated equilibria is where scientists believe that evolution can occur gradually at some times and more rapidly at others. Evolution of species. Many different organisms within a species do not exhibit the same traits when a species has a variety in their gene pool. It allows them to have a better chance of surviving in unknown living conditions. This is called genetic diversity. Over time, different environment and genetic variation have produced, through natural selection, a variety of organisms that exist today. Organisms live in an environment called a habitat that provide what it needs to live, grow, and reproduce. New species form when they are geographically isolated from the rest of its species for a long time. A species is extinct if no members of the species are still alive. There are many ways species can become extinct, such as a disease, killings, or being unable to adapt to their environment. Climate change is also a huge factor of extinction. This could cause the species to die off, unable to reproduce.
Classification is a process of grouping based on similarities. Biologists use classification to study fossils and living organisms in an easier way. The scientific study of living things that are classified is taxonomy. This study of classification also uses organism similarities to organize them into groups.
In 1750, Carlos Linnaeus created a system of naming organisms. He gave them two-part names. This system is called binomial nomenclature, which means two names.
Genus is a classification grouping that contains closely related organisms. The first word in an organism's name is its genus. The second part of an organism's name usually is based off physical appearance or its traits.
An organism is placed into broad groups, then is divided into more specific groups. The groups are domain, kingdom, class, order, family, genus, and species.
Organisms are sorted into their groups by their cell type, their abilities to make food, and the number of cells in their body. The three domains are bacteria, prokaryotes, and eukarya.
Another way that organisms are organized is by using a branching tree diagram, which shows evolutionary relationships by grouping organisms according to shared derived characteristics.